Marie-Louise continues. The country now begins to have a wild appearance. The plain becomes more confined, and if only the mountains were more wooded, this landscape would be extremely beautiful after the twists and turns which the Rhine makes here. Amundshausen comes into view with numbers of old castles on the summit of the mountains. Then on the left are Bautzberg and Knieptine, while on the other side is Falkenberg. I was told the red wine is grown near Asmenhausen, which has the same flavor as Burgundy. I much regretted not being able to stay to make excursion into all the beautiful valleys of which one here gets glimpses. They are filled with convents of nuns. On this side is that of Athensen. Beneath the ruins of Sunek, upon the left bank, are seen the smiling villages of Dreikhausen and Niederheimbach. To the right is the ruin of Lorch, the frontier of the Rheingau. This ruin is built upon a mass of inaccessible rocks, crowned by an ancient castle, of which it is said that the chatelain who inhabited it made a vow not to marry any knight unless he should ride up on horseback. A dozen broke their necks in the attempt. There was one, however, who made a compact with the devil and succeeded. He married the lady and did so many good deeds that the devil dared not come to fetch him at the time appointed. The mountains become less elevated towards Steinbach, and the ruins of Furstenberg and Stahleck and Bacharach are seen on the right bank of the Rhine. It was formerly an imperial city. Nearby there is an altar in the Rhine, which the Romans dedicated to Bacchus, only to be seen at low water. The town is dominated by an ancient castle of Stahleck. The wind here became so strong that our yacht was turned about at least a dozen times. At the same time, it became excessively cold, so everybody went below. I remained on deck at the risk of catching a fever to contemplate the beauties of nature. Moreover, to disobey my doctor delighted me. The Rhine widens again very much here, and one appears to be in a sort of lake, in the midst of which is the square Platz, built on a rock without any entrance except a trapdoor with little loopholes for windows. According to the old records, this is where the Palatine countesses were obliged to pass the period of their pregnancy and confinement in an apartment consisting of a triangular chamber where one would not even lodge one's waiting maid. How miserable the condition of those poor women must have been in that age of barbarism! It is not even now very agreeable, but I would not change with our great-grandmothers. The town of Kau, with its old fortress of Gutenfels, is noticeable on the right, from the windows of which Gustavus Adolphus gave orders to repel the assault of the Spaniards. It is said the scenery in the country about a league from Kau is very beautiful. Next comes Oberwesel on the left bank, with the ancient ruin of Schoenberg, whose founder belonged to the Belmont family. On looking back from here, one obtains a beautiful view of Kau and the square tower. The industry of the inhabitants in cultivating their vines on every inch of ground is incredible. They even plant them upon some of the steepest rocks in an endeavor to prevent the earth crumbling by means of walls. Here is a rock called Luci, which is quite imposing in its form, where an echo will repeat 7 times. Near this place is a bank of sand, which is in danger to boatmen who do not understand the navigation of the Rhine. The fishermen make use of it in fishing for salmon. They live in huts, and in this respect are not unlike the Laplanders as described in travels. They presented us with 2 rather fine fish. It is reported that this bank is connected with the eddy at Bingen, and boats which have been lost in the latter have reappeared on the bank. We were very agreeably surprised on suddenly coming in view of St. Goar, where we were to sleep, which was reached at 8:30. We were saluted by the cannon of the old fortress of Rheinfels and Gorhausen, which are opposite each other. St. Goar's little town with scarcely 2,000 souls. The house I occupied looked over the Rhine, on which the illuminated boats made a pretty effect. My apartment was not sumptuous, consisting as it did of nothing but 4 walls. My love for the beauties of the scenery of the Rhine cost me dear. I was desperately ill all night, and in the morning had still sufficient fever to prevent any departure before the middle of the following day. After being in a fine passion with poor Chevalier Bourdier, who endeavored to persuade me to swallow syrup of couch grass, chamomile, soothing draughts, and 100,000 other things which would have poisoned me. I shall do nothing until we reach Paris, and then shall only follow the advice of the Grand Médecin. On the 3rd, we had tolerably fine weather for our voyage, which was accomplished very pleasantly. We passed by Weymouth, with its remarkably handsome Gothic tower, and the old castle called Maelstrom. The rocks are quite bare as far as Hirsenach, where there is a very fine abbey. There are gold and silver mines here, and more orchards. The Rhine turns eastward. Above Salzig are the 2 castles of Liebenstein and Sternfels, called the 2 brothers, about which a charming tale is told. But as it is a long one, my reclining posture will not permit me to write it. There was a Bornhausen, a convent of Capuchins, which until 2 years ago was still a celebrated place of pilgrimage. It was founded by Bromser, but had to be suppressed on account of the excesses committed there. On the left is the town of Beaupert, with its ancient towers and walls, which is said to be one of 50 fortresses built by Germanicus in this part of Germany. Above the town of Marienburg, there used to be a convent in which were canonesses. The fine road constructed by the emperor, after overcoming so many difficulties, traversed this bank. It necessitated the blasting of rocks, the building of stone bridges, and the boring of tunnels, and was only completed a few years ago. The Rhine widens again considerably, and one sees Braubach and the old fortress of Marksburg, situated on the rock which is frequently enveloped in clouds, where the Emperor Henry IV was received after his own son had refused him hospitality. The landscape here is much more pleasing, for the mountains recede, which brings Oberlatzstein in sight. To the left, one sees the little town of Rennes, which has a very curious square tower. 400 paces from this town, in the shade of some walnut trees, was formerly the site of the Königsstuhl, but no traces of it can now be seen. Here, in the early days of Christianity, the emperor and his 7 electors held their deliberations, and the emperors were elected or the throne. It was erected on this spot because the states of the 4 electors of the Rhine joined. It made me feel sad to see the destruction of monuments of such ancient grandeur, and the pilot who related this story was unable to restrain his emotion. Not a vestige is left of this ancient monument of the greatness of Germany. Opposite this spot, across the river, is the ruin of the chapel where the Emperor Wenceslaus was dethroned by his electors in 1400. The little town of Oberlatzstein is charmingly situated on the other bank. The ruins of the ancient castle of Kokenfels can be seen, and a little further on one comes to the mouth of the Lahn. Here we were besieged with a quantity of boats which brought us fruit and flowers, meanwhile being saluted with endless volleys of cannon. Truly a most painful ordeal, both physically and morally. I suffered much from it. When the Duchess is present, this reminiscence of unhappy memories must be very trying for her. The land flows into the Rhine between the old castle of Lahnec and Niederlandstein. Its banks are said to be very picturesque and a good hunting ground for botanists and mineralogists. The mouth of it is only half an hour's distant from that of the Moselle. Near the Lahn is a very large island in the Rhine, on which is a ruined convent founded in 1143 and occupied by nuns up to the time of the Revolution. Having left the convent on our right hand, we pass the village of Horxheim, which has a glorious view. In the distance is a Carthusian monastery on the left hand. To the right, the ruined fortress of Ehrenbreitstein, and in front, Koblenz, with its very fine old residence of the elector. We arrived at 4 o'clock. I was lodged in the prefecture, having a pretty outlook into a garden, but being still feverish, I hastened to retire to bed. Monsieur Bourdier came to see me and told me that 2 unfortunate gunners who should have been of my guard had lost one his arm, the other both wrists, in endeavoring to discharge a cannon to celebrate my arrival. It is very sad to reflect that no journey takes place without occasioning some such accident, though quite innocently.